Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Funke, and this video is going to be a book review. And this book is called I Love the Girl by Walter Trobisch. I'm really thankful that you're watching my videos. It definitely means a lot to me, so thank you for your support, for watching, your likes, and your comments. So let's get into this book review. So a little background about the book. So this book was written in 1962, that's a long time ago, originally written in French as Je me une fille. I think I said that right. Set in the Congo, and what it's really about letters between this guy named Francois and a missionary named Walter Trobisch. So he's just trying to navigate life, and he has all these questions. There's so much wisdom in the replies that Walter Trobisch has, and I think that's one reason why I like the book so much. Just all the quotes, and I will go over them. So I really want to talk about the background, give you an overview, tell you what the book is all about, and I want to talk about some of the quotes and the lessons that I learned from the book. And then there was a few things that I didn't really agree with, just a couple of things, in my opinion. Or like, my opinion is better than Walter's, but just really my opinion. And I'll tell you if I recommend the book or not. Let's get into it. I'll start with an overview of the book. So here, Francois is writing to Walter, who's a missionary in Africa. So Francois is a young African guy. He's around, I would say, in his 20s, maybe between early to mid 20s. And he wrote this letter saying, I love the girl, or as the church calls it, adultery. So you can guess that he wasn't really loved. He didn't really love this girl. He basically just slept with her. And he wrote this letter to Testing because what happened was that the church had fired him from his job. He was working as a teacher for one of the church's schools, and they've also banned him from communion for 6 months. So he's testing, and then guess what to tell him? You didn't really love this girl because you didn't really care about the girl. It was just about your urge at that moment, your desire. You didn't really care how the girl was feeling. You don't even care if she got pregnant or anything. It wasn't really about the girl. It was about your selfish desire. So love is not really the word because you don't love this girl. You don't know anything about her, and you were just wanting to fulfill your own desire. It was never about the girl. And he ends up opening up that he didn't really love the girl. Actually, he said he hates her. He said he actually hates the girl because what had happened was that his friend had invited him over to his house to have a beer, and his friend's sister ends up being the one who gives him the beer, and then she starts teasing him and telling him that he's a dish rag. Apparently that's something in the Congo where you call a guy a dish rag because you think that he's not man enough or he can't perform. So yes, the girl teasing him, a man, you're not man enough. So he really wanted to prove himself to this girl. So he didn't really like the girl, but because she was teasing him, he was annoyed that she was teasing him. So he ends up sleeping with her. And so it's a bunch of back and forth letters where he's really trying to test and just really trying to give out or like update his feelings, whatever he's going through as a young guy, I guess as a young guy in that day and age. And I think it's kind of similar to these days that what we're having. And one of the defenses that he tries to come up with is that, oh, even if I want to marry in the future, I need to test a girl, see how girls are. I want to see how a girl is. How will I know how to prepare for marriage if I haven't tried a girl? And so Walter is telling him that's not really how you know a girl, because girls are different, right? And you can't just say, I want to know how girls are, so I'm going to sleep with this girl. You're going to find out that the girl that you eventually marry are different. So girls are different. So you can't judge one girl based on another girl. And he actually tells him that you doing that, you're actually opening yourself up to the polygamous nature, where now you're trying everything. And then when it comes to marriage, and now you're used to the variety that maybe you can't stop because you had that variety and one girl doesn't satisfy you anymore. And he basically tells him, don't reduce sex to a mechanical thing. Don't just do it as an act, because now if you do that, you're basically separating love from sex, and that was not God's design. So a lot of back and forth between Francois and Walter Trobisch. So Walter Trobisch is basically trying to give him advice, and one thing I noticed was that Francois, he asked the difficult questions. And so because he's able to ask those questions, I think we can get a lot of lessons that we can learn. So what eventually happens is that Francois, he repents, he realizes that what he'd done is wrong. You need to preserve a girl's purity. You don't exploit it for your own personal desires. And he goes to Walter Trobisch's house, and basically they have a chat. He repents and everything's fine. And on his way back, which is funny, he meets another girl that he actually, so this time around, he loves this girl. He falls in love with her. He doesn't want to abuse her or use her as an object. He really wants to protect this girl. He sees her as the woman of his children. And so the first night that they were together, he never tried to sleep with her or anything. He really honors this girl. But then as they keep on dating, the desires come back, because now he has all these desires again. Now he loves this girl, but then the physical desires are coming back, and here he is trying to really be able to keep himself from marriage. And he asked this question to Walter. He says, well, me and this girl, we love each other. And one time they met at the church. Now we've met at the church, we both love each other. We're basically married. Why are you still trying to restrict us from basically sleeping together? And Walter reminds him that the engagement season is not really when you should be sleeping with each other. That all should be reserved for marriage, because in marriage now you have that freedom, you have that time. There's really nobody limiting you in marriage. But in the engagement season, you still hide it, or you're trying to do it in secrecy, and you don't really enjoy it that way. Even if you're really sure you love this person, you never know what will happen in the engagement phase. He gave an example of a couple that they were pretty sure that they were going to end up together. They both loved each other. But during the engagement phase, they found some things that they could not deal with, and they decided that they were going to go their separate ways. And he pointed out that it was easier, right? Because at this point, they hadn't had sex. They were just getting to know each other. So it was easier for them to come apart. Even though they were so sure that they were supposed to be together, they were able to come apart because they found out that they could not be together. So he was just pointing out to him that you still have to wait. You still have to do it the right way. And when you do it the right way, you will enjoy the benefits. So the ending part of it was Francois really struggled with was the bride price. So the father of the girl knew Francois' intention, and he basically gave him an amount for the bride price, $400. Which he was really mad at it, because he thought that everybody was against him, because here he's just turned his life around. He was hoping that things would be a smooth sailing for him. He basically felt like everybody had failed him. His own family, the pastors, he even mentioned that he felt like God was not on his side too, because he didn't have that money and there was no way that he could afford it. His father was not there for him, and he had just lost his job. He didn't have a job. How could he come up with that money, $400? And this was in 1962, remember? And when I translate that I asked ChatGPT to adjust it for inflation for me. ChatGPT said $4,200 today. So just imagine a teacher in Africa. Teachers don't get paid that much. And this is what the father has basically told him. You have to pay this before you marry my daughter. And I can relate to that a little bit, coming from Nigeria myself. So my culture, Yoruba culture, there's not a lot of emphasis placed on the money. I remember one family member telling me that theirs was 500 naira at that time, which would be 50 cents at that time. And when I adjusted that for inflation, it would be around $1.50 or $2, something like that. So for our culture, there's not a lot of emphasis, because we believe that we're not selling the girl. The family is not selling the girl, so they don't place a lot of emphasis on the money. It's just something that's symbolic of, this is what we're giving your daughter, and we can keep this. And usually, for whatever reason, if the marriage doesn't work, the family is able to return it easily. But there are other cultures that place a lot of emphasis on this. I know another family member was trying to marry somebody from a different culture, and oh my goodness, what the list they gave us was crazy. It was a lot of money, and basically everybody had to chip in to pay this. So I really relate to Francois. This time around, it was just money, and he didn't have that money. So there was that frustration where they tried to talk to the girl's father, and he basically said he hadn't paid the full bride price for the girl's mother, which was kind of crazy. Like, he married this woman, has had grown-up children, but hadn't fully paid the bride price. So he was waiting on his daughter's future husband bride price to pay his. So they basically said there's nothing we can do, and it's not just the thing that the father decides, it's the family thing. The father's brothers and all these stuff. And he also needed money for tuition for the girls' brothers as well. So basically he said, that's fine, you have to come up with the money. And he didn't have the money. And then another crazy thing that happened was another man came on the scene and he wanted to marry this girl, and he had all the money. He had the money to flaunt around. He was already giving people money even before the bride price. So they knew that he had the bride price for sure. And he was gonna make her his second wife because he had a first wife, but she wasn't educated, and he was a government official. He needed a wife that would be the front wife, if that makes sense. So go with him to all the meetings and receive guests and kind of, so he wanted to make her the second wife. And she didn't love him. She didn't want to marry this guy. She loved Francois. And so what happened was that they thought that the guy was gonna pay the bride price. And if he paid it, then there was no going back. She had to marry the guy. So what happened was they ended up running away. So they ran away. I don't think it had a really good ending, in my opinion, because if they ran away, that means they probably didn't do it right. So they ended up running away. So that's all. That's the story, actually. But I think that there's a lot of good lessons, especially with all the questions that Francois was asking and how Walter was responding. So I want to go through some of my favorite quotes and talk about the lessons that I learned in them. Here's a quote of Francois asking about polygamy, because remember what I had said, that he told him that if he was sleeping around to test girls, he basically opens up that polygamy spirit in him, where it's like he has to have that variety now because he's opened himself up to that variety in the past. And so when he got that letter from Walter, then he had this question. He said, "You warned me against awakening a polygamous desire within me. Is it not possible to love several women at the same time?" I think that's an important question, because on Nigerian social media, I've seen that a lot, where people say that men are polygamous in nature. Men had, in the past, in Nigeria, I guess before the colonial rule, men were marrying more than one wife, and people thought it's fine, we were doing it before, and it's because of the colonial rule and the missionaries, they now made it compulsory for men to marry one wife. But they're saying it's not really in our nature, and some people even quote the Bible, and I think Francois did that too. He said in the Bible there were men that married more than one wife. There were polygamies in the Bible, and he didn't think that the Bible condemned it. The Bible didn't condemn it. So why are you telling me that I have to marry just one woman? Right? That's a valid question, I think. So here's Walter's response. He basically said, I don't really have a lot of time and I can't go into the details, but here's the basics. Polygamy in the Bible was the exception, not the rule. And then he mentioned people that only got married to one wife. He mentioned Noah, he mentioned Joseph, and he mentioned a few men in the Bible, and also all the prophets, they only married one wife. And the only reason why polygamy, or the majority of the times why polygamy came into place, was for bearing children. Sometimes when the woman couldn't have children, they would marry another woman for children. And here's another thing that he said, I think Francois relates to this too. No, a man cannot love more than one woman at the same time. When you talk about genuine love, even the Bible said it, that a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to the wife. So the Bible really just recognizes one person, which is the wife, not wives. So you really cleave to one person, not multiple women. And another thing that he mentioned was that polygamy breeds jealousy. And I think this is not talked about a lot. And I think now it's like in social media, they're coming back with this poly relationships that are popular. They're making it look glamorous, but they don't really talk about the other side of it, which is there is definitely jealousy, there is favoritism, there's strife. And it's not really talked about. But that's one of the consequences of polygamous relationship, and people can try to defend it, but there's definitely jealousy. I don't care how nice the women are to each other. Women, we know each other. I just have to say, women, we know each other. So there'll definitely be jealousy there where you have to share a husband. Yeah, so that answers that for polygamy. So another quote that he put in is, a young man who hasn't learned self-control before marriage we will not have it during marriage. And I think I mentioned that too. There's sometimes people believe that, oh, once I get married, it will be fine. Once I have a wife, I will control myself. But people don't realize that if you don't have it before marriage, it will even be harder in marriage. There's so many people that they were having multiple partners, and now it's like, oh, all of a sudden they expect that it will be a switch that will just basically turn on, and they will only be faithful to one person. But it doesn't happen that way. If you don't learn it before marriage, then you won't have it. So you want to learn how to have that self-control, and then in marriage it will come easier. And here's one I wanted to mention. I talked about the fact that he said that he was sleeping with the girl to try to know women, to know how to prepare for marriage. And so this is Walter's response to him. He says, "It is absolutely foolishness to lie with just any girl in order to know what women are like. There's no such thing, as a typical woman. For every woman is different, not only in her body, but also in her heart." So like I said, women, we're all different. We don't all like the same thing. We don't all want the same thing. So you can't say that you want to test this woman because you want to prepare for the woman that you're going to marry. You're going to find out that they're all totally different. So that's not the way to prepare. If you really want to prepare for marriage, you should look at other aspects. And I think he talked about it too. The psychological aspects, like preparing mentally, preparing emotionally. And sexually is not the way that you prepare, because in marriage, you have all the time that you need to prepare, to learn each other and to know each other's likes and dislikes. So sleeping with another girl does not prepare you for marriage with a different girl. Actually gives you the opposite. It creates an opposite effect. Another thing that Francois mentioned was, how do I know that the girl that I marry is going to have children? And I think this is also an African thing. I don't know if it's also common in the West. I've seen situations where guys will say, I need her to be pregnant before the marriage because I want to know if she can have children, because my family wants me to test her when I have children. So I guess those guys, they've basically reduced the woman to a baby making factory, where it's like, well, if you can't have children, then we can't get married. Bible reference that talks about the union of a woman and a man is like the union of Christ and the church, where the woman and the man come together as one. And he gave an illustration that there's so many married couples that don't have children, but they've been able to use their time to devote their time to the word of God and to spread the gospel. So don't reduce a woman to a baby making factory and be like, if she can't have children, then I have to dispose her. So I've seen that in Africa, where the man wants to sleep with the girl and have a child before they get married because he wants to make sure that he has a child. But that's not really. So when you have the child, then what happens to the woman? Is the woman still worthy of your love and attention, or is your attention going to be on just the child? So that's another question that he had, that I want to test if the girl can have a child for me because I want to be a father, but you don't want to reduce women to just baby making factories. So another quote, I think this was at the beginning, where Francois was saying, God put these desires in me, why would he want me to can them? Kind of thing. I think people say that God put this desire in me, so I need to just have any girl. I have no control over it, so I need to just find any girl and sleep with it. I need to release it. And I think he also mentioned a part where he said, maybe his friends mentioned it, that you could get ill as a man if you don't release that sexual tension or just find some way to release it. So here's Walter saying, indeed, sexual desires are created by God. They are a gift of God, one of the most precious gifts you've received for your young life. But the existence of a desire does not justify its satisfaction. God gives you that desire, but God also expects that you control that desire, and then you reap the benefits in a union like marriage. And then he gives Francois a tip on how he could basically control these desires. He says to him, everything will be easier when you realize that your body belongs to God and that he has entrusted you your sexual power, as well as your talents, your time, and your money to be used for the happiness of your fellow men. So not just being selfish about it and trying to fulfill that desire, but using it for the glory of God. Those are my quotes, favorite lessons from the book. I think that the book has a lot of them, but I just picked a few of them. Didn't really want to go through too much. Now let's talk about things that I particularly did not agree with. Not saying that it's wrong, it's just my opinion on the matter. So there was a part where Francois had written a letter to Walter where he was talking about controlling his sexual urges. He definitely felt like he wanted to have her at that point because he couldn't control his urges. And he was saying, oh yeah, we kissed and like we caressed, and he was talking about how he was really being tempted by her. And here's Walter's advice to Francois. I'll just read a little bit here. So here he's saying, how far do I dare to go? As far as you can. Put your hand in the jaws of the tiger if you can. But don't overestimate your strength and don't skip over any of the steps. You may learn to feel which caresses are right for the particular occasion. Please don't think just because many do it so quickly and easily that kissing is not an art. Never take your eye off the tiger. He's awake and prowling. He follows every moment, knows every weakness. Francois, I'm sending you along a dangerous road, but I'm glad you tell me everything. I don't want you to be evasive. Once more, he who believes does not flee. Well, personally, I would like to compare it to the Bible. The Bible definitely says to flee temptation. And I think Joseph is one example in the Bible where Potiphar's wife was trying to sleep with him. The Bible didn't say that he tried to negotiate or try to see how far he could go. The Bible says that he fled right away. And I think that this example that he's giving him, basically he's telling him, go as far as you can go, but don't have sex. And I think that that's really dangerous advice because these two people, they're meeting in secluded areas. They're meeting in areas where there's nobody. And so if you tell somebody, just go as far as you can to the edge of the cliff. Just keep going, but make sure that you don't fall. That's really hard, right? But if you tell them, just don't even try to go to the edge of the cliff. Just stay very far. For me personally, I think that once you start getting into those physical intimacy, every time you meet, you want to get to a new high. You want to get to a new high. And I wouldn't advise it. I would say avoid it as much as you can. Don't meet in secluded places. Meet in the open. Just really avoid it, because if you try to see as far as you can go, most of the times you will fall. So personally, I don't think that that's great advice, telling him that he can go as far as he can. I would say that do not even try to. That's just me. Let me know what you guys think. Am I overthinking this, or is Walter right? Another thing, and this is not, I guess it's just he didn't say that it was a hard and fast rule. He just said it's a general guidance. He says that the age for marriage is the man should be 25 and the woman should be 21. But he said again, it's not a hard and fast rule, it's just a general guidance. So personally, I don't have any issues with that. I just think that many people have a lot of opinion on the age. People can say different things. Personally, I would say 21 is particularly young, but there's some people that are married and they've been successful. So again, no hard and fast rule. I just don't know about the ages though. Like, I've heard different ages from different people, but again, that's just his opinion, and just wanted to point that out. But anyways, guys, that's all I had about the book. Have you read this book? I don't know if anybody has read it. What do you think about the book? Let me know in the comments. And would I recommend this book? Definitely, I would recommend it 10 out of 10. It's a great book. Lots of great advice. I think even though it was written in 1962, the same challenges that young men are facing, what Francois faced, dealing with the peer pressure, that sexual energy, trying to release it, and all of these stuff. So I would say, and also coming from Africa, I could relate to a lot of the things that they were saying, the bride price, polygamy, and all this stuff. So I would definitely recommend the book. And it's a really short read. It's about a 2-hour read, so you can read it in one sitting. But great book, great advice. Let me know if you've read the book. And thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Tell me, what can I offer to you? How can I say that I'm grateful? Oh, yeah.